Don't you hate it when you're thinking of vlog ideas like freaking all day, and you've got like all these amazing things you want to say, and then finally when you're sitting here in front of the camera, it's like, I can't think of anything. What do I say? My mind is just like blank. So it's times like these when we resort to the old standby. Did you know that if there was no coloring added to Coca-Cola, it would actually be green? You know, when I was a kid, I always thought it tasted like green. And while Coke's tasting like green, apparently beetles taste like apples, wasps taste like pine nuts, and worms taste like bacon. And as we learned recently, milk bones do not taste like milk. We've heard them described as being some sort of exotic nut, which I don't understand why they don't just name it exotic nut bone. Yeah, maybe that wouldn't be such a good idea. And speaking of milk, more people are allergic to cow's milk than any other food. Sucks to be them.
Se le llama tuerca este video. Ah, yo también, güey. No.
More on that later, but first, now most of you probably remember, or have at least been told or heard of, the way that Microsoft became huge. Everybody was trying to come up with the best graphical user interface. Now Apple had released this thing called the Macintosh computer, which was like revolutionary. It had like this mouse and like windows you could see, like the different files and like things cascaded out of folders and whatnot. Then shortly after that, Microsoft released their new graphical interface called Windows. It was very suspiciously similar to the Macintosh operating system. So this huge dispute started over copyright infringement, and basically things went down the toilet for Macintosh from there. So Microsoft was born. And Microsoft became this huge family name. When the everyday person thought about computers, like the only thing they could think about was a Microsoft computer, a PC. So now Apple still existed, of course. It was just, you know, second best. I mean, just to put it bluntly. Anyway, all that legal stuff was settled, and they still hate each other's guts, but you know, what can you do? They're competitors. And you know, it continues as business as usual. And then all these other small software companies start popping up like Yahoo and Sun Microsystems and Google. Now some of us remember when Google just kind of slowly appeared out of nowhere. I believe their company slogan was something like, to make information free and available to everybody. Or, you know, something like that. So they started out with a search engine, which was apparently really good. And it got better and better as they improved it, and they added an image search engine, and they created a whole mapping database, and put up satellites, and created Google Earth. Then eventually they bought YouTube, where people could share videos, and then they created an email account thing. Finally they're like, you know, we're kind of restrained, we have to be within like this other browser, so they decided, hey, we'll create our own browser, and that way we don't have to deal with all these other browsers. So they created Google Chrome, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. They're trying to streamline information and get it out to people as much as possible. And Apple, they noticed this, and they're like, hey, we like that. We think these guys have great ideas. And it was around this time that Steve Jobs finally got his job back at Apple. he had all these new amazing ideas. He released the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone after that, and then the iPod and the iPhone got even fancier and fancier, and now they're all touchscreen, and they're just going full force, and still a big competitor of Microsoft. But you know, Microsoft was already years and years and years ahead of Apple, and everybody already had a PC, Windows-based PC in their homes. And even though Apple was releasing all these super amazing software and technology and everything, Microsoft was still basically everyone's choice computer, because that's what everybody had, and why change? But anyway, with all these new release things that Apple are coming out with, they teamed up with Google, because Google was great at giving out information. Google created a bunch of applications to put on the iPhone. I think it was about 2006 when the Google CEO Eric Schmidt joined the board of directors at Apple, and it was basically a match made in heaven. Google was giving them out all this software to make information free and available to everybody. Then the iPhone just kind of like shot off into space and became this super phenomenon and everything. And then Eric Schmidt, he kind of sat back and he's like, huh, that's interesting. I bet we could probably do this. Why don't we just create our own phone? They just didn't like how restricting the iPhone was. If they wanted to get information out free and available to anybody, anywhere, they decided that they need to have their own phone to do that, so that they could have no restrictions. They used an open source operating system so that it could be changed and modified however whoever uses the phone, however they want. So they released the Android operating system, and they give it out free to all of the phone manufacturers and say, hey, use this, it's free. And so they use it. And guess what? Google made it look very close to the iPhone's operating system, which was kind of a kick in the pants for poor Apple. After having to deal with Microsoft taking their graphical user interface way back when they were starting up, now they got to deal with Google stealing what made their iPhone so cool and popular and making it better, basically, by making it free and available to anybody. So needless to say, in 2009, Eric Schmidt quit the board of directors over at Apple. But anyway, so my point is, a few weeks ago, I got a new phone. It's got the Google operating system, the Android, of which I am a big fan. This is the Samsung Epic. I've got my old iPod Touch here that doesn't work anymore, but you know, I might fix it one day. It's still a good thing, but you know, it's the whole principle of the matter. Free information for everybody, and a big corporation that keeps getting screwed by its friends. You know, it's kind of a sad story now that I think about it. But you know what? I just won't think about it.